next session will deal with the best practice on revenue collection strategies, and it will be headed by Mr. Radesh Ranjeeth. In his team, we have the Department of Public Works, represented by Kolile Ntanza, an official revenue manager from the Harigwala district, Ms. Tembeka Kaba, and from the National Treasury, Mr. Dirk Spangenberg. And the discussion will revolve around enhancing debt management and credit control policies and procedures for sustainable growth. We're looking at the realm of organs of state in government debt, business and commercial debt, and management and accounting for indigents. Headed by Mr. Ranjeeth of KZN Cocta. Can I call you up to participate and lead in this informative panel discussion? Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues, once again. In terms of introducing my panel, we're joined by Tembeka Kaba. She's the revenue manager at Harigwala District Municipality. If you can just raise your hand, Tembeka. Just some portfolio and profile on Tembeka. She started as a debtors clerk and then worked up to a chief accountant. She's now the revenue manager at Harigwala District Municipality. She's been there for 21 years. She has a national diploma in accounting, and she's got a post-grad in business management. The next panelist we have is Mrs. Ntanzi, Nkoli Ntanzi. She's been in the public service for 24 long years, colleagues. She started as admin clerk. She's then progressed up the ranks. She's a director, but she's currently acting as a chief director in the Provincial Department of Public Works. She's got 24 years experience in immovable asset management, both provincial and national level. And she also is responsible for the payment of property rates to municipalities. In terms of academic profile, she's got a public diploma, bachelor's diploma in public admin. She's got an advanced diploma in business management, a diploma in HR, and she's got advanced project management and property management, and she's also a property research analyst. Apparently this is a very scarce skill, and she's one of the few people in the province that has this. Now, shame, nobody's told you about my profile and what I do. So let me do it myself. My name is Radesh Ranjeeth, as you know. I work in KZN Cocta, municipal finance. I've been in the public sector for over 30 years. I've been in local government space for over 20 years. We started MFMA in KZN Provincial Treasury when it was first delegated to the province. I worked there for a few years, 2005, 2006. 2011, I joined Cocta. And Cocta, we do the entire spectrum in terms of finances, in terms of MFMA. I support the Amajuba district as well as Tigwini. And in my other life and for my sins, I'm responsible for government debt as well as consumer debt. In terms of my academic qualifications, I hold a master's MBA. And it must not, my MBA is a Master of Bugger All. And it must not be confused with the other MBA, Married But Available. I don't have that MBA, okay? Master of Bugger All is what I have. Okay, let's proceed then. So what I'm going to do today, I want to introduce our problem statement with some statistical data, information and ideas in terms of enhancing revenue collection for securing future revenue streams. Colleagues, before I progress further, I just want to comment on something my colleague didn't do justice this morning when she was recapping. Late yesterday afternoon, we were talking about running through robots. A more important statement was made. We mustn't approve policies we can't police and implement. So the issue of red robots, by not taking action, we are rewarding bad behavior. Similarly, for illegal connections, if we don't act, we are rewarding and encouraging bad behavior. So it's beyond red robots. It's principles and recognizing and rewarding good behavior as opposed to bad behavior. The second point from yesterday, don't implement policies we can't manage and police, or implement and police. So you have a wonderful credit control debt collection policy that says how you must deal with illegal connections, how you should deal with normal discollections, and you apply your policy. And suddenly you get a call from somebody to say, that one from the mayor, Spariyami, go and reconnect him. Why do you have the policy? Are you implementing that policy? So the statement made yesterday, I think it was you, Mrs. Spanenberg, which said don't implement policies so you can't, don't develop policies. Was it you?
I talk too much.
Okay, but anyway, your colleagues would remember it was mentioned yesterday, but I just want to stress the point to say policies are important. In our space, those are our SOPs, it's our Bible. And if people are going to interfere, then you ask yourself, what's the point in having our policies? The next slide, what it is that we've taken information from your budget C schedules, and you'll see I go from June 23, to September 2024. And what we've done is that by the custom group categories, we've got organs of state, commercial, household, other, and totaled. So the very first table I've circled, you will see the organs of state, and I show you the percentage that organs of state make compared to the total debt. I'm also showing you household debt compared to the total. The second table then looks at actual numbers, and you'll see organs of state, what they stand at, and you'll see household, what they stand at. And I must indicate to you that 34 billion of the debt you're seeing there belongs to my colleagues at Tigweni. The next slide, colleagues, I've just translated these numbers into a chart, and the point I'm really trying to drive home is look at the difference between government debt and household debt. There's a huge gap. And yet we're crying all the time, government is not paying us, government is this, government is that. But look at household debt. What are we doing about household debt? And I think the numbers are telling us that we need to now start paying attention in terms of finding innovative strategies for household debt so we can have financial sustainability in the short to medium term. I've not commented, you'll see I've not commented much on the commercial debt and other, but because they were not significant in terms of the comparison I wanted to make. It's really household debt that we need to pay attention to. So on the next slide, I just want to give you some updates in terms of organs of state, and then my colleague, Mrs. Ntanzi, will come in later. She'll drill down further in terms of what they're doing as a department regarding government debt owed to municipalities. So provincially, there's been a huge budget constraints. KZN currently is underfunded by approximately 5.7 billion. So all our departments don't have about 5.7 billion. Money's been taken away from them. And the biggest casualties, and you excuse the pun, is Department of Health, Education, and Social Development. And I'm hoping the next session, when we talk about grant dependency, the numbers would come through in terms of what, as a province, we get from the equitable share for departments and how that has come down. But I think it's important to note that 5.7 billion has been taken away from us. We had to reprioritize because of prior years, salary increases, floods. I think National Province has 1 billion. Radesh is not here. But 1 billion was supposed to come to KZN for floods. The money never came. So KZN had to reprioritize programs. And that's why you suffer as municipalities where departments are battling to pay. There's also the Provisional Vesting Committee that's been established, and here they deal with all your RSE properties, unverified properties. There's also a National Works Sector Forum that's been established, and they deal with debt around the work sector. In the province, we've established what we call a Provincial Coordinating Forum on Government Debt, and we meet quarterly with all the departments in the province that are responsible for paying municipalities, either for rates or services. And we've had this forum running for about 4 years now, and I think we're doing reasonably well, Toli, in terms of what we deal with in our forums. Department of Human Settlements in the province, they're in the process of devolving properties, that's the non-core properties, to municipalities. And we understand by end of March next year, all the properties must be transferred to municipalities. What this means for you is that rates would be paid up, so there's more inflows coming, and then you have these properties then for your secure future revenue streams to do as you wish with this land in terms of commercial housing and the like. NPWI stands for National Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. They are currently busy with 2 initiatives. They want to reclaim what they're calling the former R293 towns that were transferred in error to municipalities. And if they can get a council resolution from municipalities, they are prepared to pay rates going back to April 2020. And this is in terms of what they call the Honeycomb Proclamation. You may have heard of that. The other initiative they're busy with is drafting a circular that deals with state domestic facilities. We call it SDFs on ITV land. What this essentially means, if there's a courthouse, there's a clinic, there's a school sitting on Yama land, this circular now would allow them to pay for that court, for that clinic, for that school, even though it doesn't sit on the asset register. So that's what this SDF is all about, and that's what the circular is aiming to do. Ultimately, it's going to mean more revenue coming to you as a municipality. The last bullet on that slide, allocation schedule after payments are received from departments. Most of our municipalities are complaining they receive payment, they don't know where to allocate. So if you're having this challenge, please let us know. We can get it from the relevant departments. The other problem we have is that when you receive monies, you don't allocate. Sits in your suspense account, unallocated receipts and the like, and you keep saying, municipality, you haven't paid us, you haven't paid us. But it's sitting in your bank account already. We've seen often, I don't have the trends here, but I can show you, June every year, we see government debt comes down significantly. And I've been trying to think, but why are we having this trend in June? It's purely because of financial year end, where you're now dealing with your unallocated receipts and your suspense accounts. So we would encourage you, and as we do with our departments as well, that when you receive your payments, you make sure you get your payment schedules and you do your allocation timeously. The next slide, colleague, I'm only going to draw on a few things. Don't get intimidated by this table. So this is our provincial summary of our provincial departments. You'll see there's 21 that we've listed there. And we're comparing debt owed between the quarters March, June, and September. Essentially, that's what the table is doing, right? I just want to draw down on a few things. Department of Education, you'll see end of September, they owe you 641 million rand. Okay. What we find with education, I've indicated to you they don't have a budget. They have budgetary constraints earlier on. Beside that, we find Section 14 schools where there's no lease agreements. Municipalities are still billing Department of Education. And we've been saying to municipalities, if there's no lease agreement, the owner is liable for the rates on those properties. It's only when you have a lease agreement in place, then Mrs. Sintanzi's department will come and pay. And she will only pay prospectively from the date that agreement is signed. She will not pay retrospectively because there was no agreement in place. And she's also got to account to the AG in terms of her department as well as the accounting officer. So please be mindful when you're saying Section 14 schools debt, make sure there's a lease agreement in place, and then we can come and knock on Mrs. Ntanzi's door and say, here's a lease agreement, you need to start paying. Yours as a municipality is to get the money from the landowner, or either encourage the landowner then to enter into a lease agreement. But if you do that, you lose rates for the prior years. I want to then move to line row 12, Department of Provincial Works. If you compare the June and the September debt, 444.3 million versus the 1.1 billion, end of September, sorry. We are saying that's normal. That increase we're saying it's more than 100% increase, but we're saying it's normal. Why are we saying that? July, August is your billing season, right? You bill for property rates as municipalities. So July, August, midway through September. So that's now the spike because of your billing. In the next quarter, you'll see the debt. When we do our December report, you'll find debt will still coming down because they've now received your invoices, they're verifying the properties, and they are now paying. So right at the bottom, if you look at June, the total there, 1.7 versus 2.6 billion. We're saying at this stage, it's not unusual. And don't say, but we're not helping you collect money. The next slide, we're looking at our national departments again, is for these 3 comparative quarters. And the only point I want to make there is row 10, your TVET colleges. Now, municipalities, we've been very creative with our schools when we want to disconnect. Just before exams, we go and switch off. We give them notice. We switch off the nerve center, the head office, the admin, because they must feel the pain when they're not paying the schools. We do that as municipalities. We've actually mastered that. But why aren't we doing that for TVET colleges? Because they're higher education. Why aren't we doing that for TVET colleges? And we want to encourage you as municipalities that 125.8 million. Look at the spike between June and September. Probably rates as well. But let's go back to March, 61 million. And we're saying TVET colleges you can collect. I know some TVET colleges are on ITB land, and when that SDF circular comes through, you'll be in a position to collect. But we're saying it shouldn't stop you from trying to collect and apply your policies and your whatever you have in terms of mechanisms to collect. The next slide, we're looking at organs of state. So this is not your provincial, it's not your national. It looks at things like Central, Eskom. We put in Ngonyama Trust here, Transnet and the like. The only thing I want to talk to on this slide, sorry, I think I missed something on my slide 6. I'm going to go back to slide 6. Apologies. Row 19, intermunicipal debt. Look at the 3 quarters there. September 291.6 million. So intermunicipal debt is debt that you owe within your family. It's either between the locals or between the local and the district. We are saying as COCTA, we can't support you there. These in terms of IGR, your structures, you can collect that debt. And we want to encourage you to reduce it in terms of the intermunicipal debt. This is debt you incur between yourselves. And we're saying you have capacity, you have resources, you have structures, please go and collect in this area. Let me come back to my slide 8. Yeah, I was talking to you about Transnet, I think it was. Yes, so this is what we're saying, other organs of state, which is not typically your provincial or your national departments. And I want to show you there as well, Transnet. Compare the debt between September and June. We're saying they've got money. They can afford to pay you guys. But are you applying your policy in terms of collections? And we want to encourage you to push them. You can disconnect them. You can restrict water. So these numbers I'm presenting, colleagues, they're aggregated at the national level. Some of you may recall on a quarterly basis, our district managers, they almost harass you for what we call the standard reporting template. I receive those from my colleagues. I then consolidate this information, I analyze it, and I present to the different structures. So this information is coming from yourselves, except the Schedule C that I presented when I started this. The next slide I've said to you, we hear the cry all the time, departments are not paying, departments are not paying. This slide gives you a summary of 13 departments that report to COCTA because of the goodwill relation we've established with them. It's not all the municipalities. And you will see there right at the end, 1.6 billion has been paid by these, call it 12 and a half departments. Social development didn't report in the 1 quarter. So 1.6 billion has been paid for 6 months to municipalities. That's a fair amount of money. If we project this forward, it's about 3.5 billion for these only. Remember, I'm saying this is a sample of 13. It's not government as a whole. So if you go and add your correctional services, your water and sanitation, your national departments, surely this payment is going to be much larger than this. And the point I'm driving is that government does pay. There are challenges in terms of government and properties, but like I'm saying, the vesting committee, and I think Mrs. Ntanzi will talk on that, they are dealing with this RSA, unverified, Republic of South Africa properties and the like. My concluding remark on government debt is that we are encouraging municipalities not to use debt collectors to collect from government departments. We as COCTA will do it for you for free. We believe we have more knowledge than debt collectors to collect government debt than debt collectors have. They charge you a commission or they take a contingency, whatever the case may be, and they just demand and harass departments. We understand departments. We've said to you we have a structure that's been working since 2021. We've built good relations with our departments. The other day, just to give you a simple example, the other day, about 2 weeks ago, for those of you familiar with Maritzburg, Grace Hospital, Department of Health, was owing Msunduzi municipality a fair amount of money. So what Msunduzi did, they disconnected the Natalia building, which is the admin building that houses Department of Health staff, COCTA and other officers, the premier staff and other people. And they were adamant that they will not give them electricity and water until that Grace Hospital account has been paid. As COCTA, we had to intervene, I had to intervene, and get them to pay. or commit to pay and then reconnect. They were running out of gas for generators. There was no water in the building, and Msunduzi was saying, no, we want money. We're saying in terms of the spirit of intergovernment relations, we don't work like that, colleagues. We also live in democracy now where we try and sit and negotiate around the table. We don't use heavy-handed tactics. They're not paying, not because they're choosing not to pay, because they've also got challenges. As you have in terms of revenue shortfalls, they've also got the same thing. But we're saying, let's meet each other halfway, let's talk, let's have dialogue. My next slide, Chair, I want to now talk about business and commercial. As I said, my colleague will expand on the government issues. So he's saying, I want to share some ideas in terms of where I think we need to look at in terms of dealing with business and commercial. So he's saying there's Chamber of Commerce, there's farmer associations and the like. Are we then using them as strategic alliance partners? Are we embracing them? We are dealing with a municipality, about 2 weeks ago, one of my municipalities in Amajuba district. The farmers were saying we are not prepared to pay rates. We haven't paid for years. I think there's about 200 million outstanding. And they're saying we're getting no service from the municipality, so we don't see the need to pay rates. We get electricity from Eskom, you don't maintain our roads, you don't collect refuse, so we don't want to pay rates. We had to have a meeting with them and then explain to them property rates as a tax. It doesn't mean whether you get services or not, it's something that you have to pay. We've now seemed to find each other and we're going to move forward. And that meeting was facilitated through the Farmers Association. So we're saying use them, use your Chamber of Commerces to form strategic alliance to help you get debt. Then the analysis of business, we're saying, have you looked at your businesses? Have you analyzed them in terms of those that are out of business and those that are operating, the deregistered businesses versus the voluntary liquidation, and those that are in final liquidation? Directors of companies doing business with municipalities, for both active and dormant companies. So if someone's in a director in a municipality, in a company, surely he also resides somewhere. What is the status of his debt? Are we going after his debt? Entities doing business with municipalities. Many municipalities are now latched onto the idea that in the tender documents, they say that in order for us to do business with you, please ensure all your municipal accounts are up to date. And straight away, you know, you've got to do that screen check when you process your tender documents to go and verify. Like SARS does, by the way, in terms of submitting your valid tax documents. So we're saying be mindful of entities doing business with you that make sure their debt is up to date before you enter into agreements with them. The ability to collect from those that are out of business. And then we're saying you should have a matrix in terms of low, medium, and high collectability, and contactability where that's high, medium, and low. And I'll talk about a little bit more in the next slide, I think, on contactability versus collectability. The issuance of annual business license relative to other debt outstanding. So I have this on good authority that as local municipalities, we have the mandate to issue business licenses annually. Do we do that as local municipalities? Issuing of business licenses? We do, so I'm correct. So we're saying when the license is issued every year for renewal, do we refer to the Budget and Treasury Office to say, here's an application to continue doing business with us, but is anything outstanding in this business? So you got some leverage to collect from business. In my slides initially, I gave you the numbers, but I didn't talk about that in the chart because relative to household, it was not big. But I'm saying here's a mechanism that you could use before you issue the license to collect and make sure the debt is up to date. Phew, talking a lot, eh? Household debt, I just want to give us a few pointers to think about, points to ponder. So we're saying deceased debt and the management thereof. How are you dealing with deceased debt? If a person is deceased for more than 5-10 years, A, are we carrying that debt in our books? And is it attracting interest every month, every year? Is that debt collectible? Surely we should have a process to do that. Not so long ago, Tigwini ran a campaign where they called for people that were for deceased account holders. Because remember, if somebody is deceased, they're still consuming service in that household. So the campaign that Tigwini ran was to say, come forward, we will write off this debt, provided somebody's going to now take accountability and responsibility for the account going forward. It's worked very well at Tigwini. We've also done it at Newcastle, Julia and Loazi, and it's worked there at Newcastle as well. So we're saying, are we being innovative with deceased, or are we just simply saying, there's nothing we can do, let's keep carrying this debt, and then we overstate our debtor book. There's things you can do, colleagues. Indigent debtors, budget and equitable share. We were horrified to learn about 2 weeks ago, a municipality said to us, we don't have an indigent register because you don't have an indigent budget. And we said there's an equitable share. Yesterday, Dirk spoke about Uncle Bill and Auntie Dora. Auntie Dora makes provision for equitable, for free basic services. So how can you come and say you don't have a budget? Uncle Bill, on the indigent, we've been pushing and fighting with National DCOC, but we don't seem to be winning. We want to ask you to help us. The 50 kiloliters, 50 kilowatts, 6 kiloliters, as Jan would say, the world has moved on since then. We need those numbers to be upped. Because to sustain an indigent household in the current day and age with the current cost, that's not sustainable. And that's one of the reasons why we get illegal connections. So this, for us, Marie Spannenberg, there is a strong relationship between illegal connections versus the quotas for the free basic services. And remember, people want uncapped electricity. They want uncapped water. They don't want 50 kilowatts. They don't want 6 kiloliters. And that's why there's illegal connections. I think Professor spoke this morning. If you want to control us, we'll bypass the system. So we're saying one way we can mitigate that is try and get these, the allocations we give them reviewed. Employees of the state, I believe this category is ripe for the picking. We sit in provincial department, we sit in national department. We are, call us the middle class. We can afford to pay. But there's many of us that are not paying for municipal services. We don't live in national department. We don't live in provincial department. We live in your space. We consume your services. But we are choosing not to pay because you're not troubling us. You're not harassing us. In Newcastle, what we did, we went to the malls, like Tigwini said yesterday. We went to the schools where were the teachers. We went to correctional services, and we got them to pay. We got them to commit to payment plans. You know the smaller municipalities. You know that one is a teacher. You know that one is a social worker. You know these things. You've got your ward committees. They know people living in their wards. You know where you can collect. Hence, I'm saying it's ripe for the picking. National Treasury, I've tried and I failed, and I'm running out of time, but I need your help here again. In our local government code of conduct for both councils and officials, you can't be more than 90 days in arrears for municipal service, am I right? As an official, they will take it off your salary. As a councillor, you make plan to pay. We don't have that as a code of conduct for our national and provincial. I've tried to negotiate and lobby to say, can't we look at the code of conduct for the public servants employed by the Public Service Act and other national employing legislation to say that the same condition that you have in your code of conduct, bring it to us as well. It's going to help you. Am I right? Why should we be more equal than you? Derki, please help us. Debt owed by farmers and farms under land claims, vacant land, illegal connections and financial implications. So I'm saying, do you know illegal property in your municipality? Your valuation role, your town planning will tell you where there's vacant land. They'll tell you where there's illegal occupation. They'll tell you where you're costing you money to take services there in an unplanned, unregulated establishment. And you're losing money. How are we dealing with that? You're bleeding you for revenue. You're putting your costs have increased to supply, but it's a leaking bucket. You're not getting anything out. How are we going to deal with that? Debt relief and amnesty for illegal connections, to do or not to do. Okay, there's two schools of thought here. Some say we should run it, others say we shouldn't. Currently, Msunduzi's got a 7 billion rand debt book, and they're running this amnesty campaign. And what we're finding and what we're seeing, even in the media, they're saying there's wealthy people that own properties that have had illegal connections for years. And now with the amnesty, they are getting an out of jail card. Those that have been paying religiously and regularly, they're saying, but there's no incentive for us. Why is it they were illegal and you should allow them to get away with it? So I'm saying there's two schools of thought, but at the end of the day, it brings in money for you, and you need to try and find a balance in terms of running your campaigns. Then I was saying council appetite for illegal connections. I talked about the mayor saying, Ispariyami, reconnect. If you go on a disconnection drive, if you want to go on a restriction drive, what is council's appetite for that? Are they supporting you? Are they blocking you? And how do you deal with that? Area Property Rates and the Prescription Act. Now we know in terms of Prescription Act, property rates only become prescribed after 30 years. And Mhlathu's municipality has found a way to actually write off this debt. And I was really and truly hoping I'd have Francois here today to talk more around this. But he's not here. But I'm just saying, perhaps as a municipality, you can explore that, talk to your legal people and see if there's a way around it, and even talk to Mr. Cornelius Francois and Mhlathu's. Contactability of your debtors. So what is the state of your debtors' data? Yesterday, Radesh touched on keeping record of data. Prof was here before tea. He talked about WhatsApp and Meta gathering all your data and how they profile you and how they see your likes and your dislikes and how then they respond in terms of vulnerability. We are saying, what is the state of our debtors' data? I offered this to two municipalities as a service provider that said we will do this free for the municipality. Give us your data book with ID numbers. We will do the analytics for you and give it back to you. It's for free, by the way. Both these municipalities declined. And I realized and I found out that the debtors' data was not up to scratch. It had no ID numbers, invalid ID numbers. So how do you manage our debtors' data in terms of contactability? Can we contact them easily? Do you have phone numbers? Do you have phone number of the employers? Phone number of an alternate person, address, employees, address, and the like. So how do we contact them? I'm sticking to SMS for now. I know it's a little bit outdated, but I'm thinking about the more rural, the more low capacity municipalities, right? Are we geared to send bulk SMS to our consumers knowing they're going to receive them? Obviously, the more advanced, like Tigbini talked about the e-services yesterday, they talked about the citizen app. So that's where we want to go eventually. But we're saying, are we able to contact with them in terms of the current technologies? If we're not, how do we contact them to say, you 90 days, we need payment. We want to now attach your house. We want to serve you with summons. How do we contact them? Then we talk about the collectability. After we've contacted them, are we able to collect? Is the debtor still employed? Is the debtor under debt review or debt administration? We need to check these things before we can say we want money. If somebody's unemployed, how are you going to get money from them? If somebody's under debt review, consolidated their debt, how are you going to get money from them? Affordability. Have we done an assessment of income and expenditure? So when you've met your debtor, owing you money, but have you gone through income and expenditure like a bank would do when you go for a loan in terms of affordability? Credit history of our debtors. Again, it's data analytics. It's a power of having the data. Credit history. How is the debtor serving other debts, such as your clothing accounts, hire purchase agreements, and the like? And in terms of this credit history, where do we sit as a municipality in terms of the pecking order? Are we up there in terms of prioritizing or top slicing, as we would say? Are we sitting right off there at the bottom of the list? The next one is what I call deceitful consumers. Now, here there are consumers that can afford to pay, but what they do, they open the account in the name of the elders, the gogos, or unemployed people. I've seen this. Personally, I've seen, and I know of a case. The guy's conceded to me he's not paying because this is what he's doing. And there's many, many cases like this. And I'm saying, are we able to now track these people? Colleagues, these are the ideas I want to give you in terms of prompting you for collecting from your household debtors. The next slide, colleagues, consumers have become very smart now. If they're getting no joy with you at a municipality, they're coming and complaining to the MEC for COCTA and the HOD for COCTA. This is a complaint that we've received at COCTA. It's coming from somebody at a municipality representing the elderly people. And I'll read this for you quickly because it's important for us to note these things, to note that if you're not going to address them in terms of your policy, it's going to come to us as a department. So the complaint is municipal billing issues. And it says, all 9 senior citizens, electricity have been disconnected and that was disconnected for over 1.5 years. All received SASA grant of 2,180 Rand. Some support their grandchildren financially as well. All have applied for indigent have been approved. Okay? Some have acute medical conditions and on medication. They travel either to that or that hospital monthly. Some have resorted to installing gas for energy because they've been disconnected. Some have borrowed money from loan sharks to cover upfront amounts before payment arrangements are made. They must also pay back the loan shark with interest. All do not receive their accounts and must travel to the offices to get copies of the account each month. All have large municipal bill. One is owing over 500,000 Rand. So these are indigent we're talking about with debt. Indigent by default, by definition, they can't afford to pay for basic services. So why are we disconnecting them and harassing them? Some are widows and stay alone. And this is a report, the guy that's representing, this is what he wrote. He said, we did an income and expense budgeting exercise and all come out with zero and not enough money to pay for monthly groceries. The last session yesterday, we talked about that, the transport costs, what they earn and what they pay for groceries. So this is a typical complaint that came to COCTA. We now got to go back to the municipality and get a response. We can then respond to the complainant. So the question I'm then posing, how does our credit control debt collection policy address this and our bylaws address this scenario? Right? Do we not need to strike a balance between showing we're a caring government as well as having good debt collection policies in place? So in conclusion, colleagues, before we hand over to my colleagues to come in, I'm saying the purpose of the presentation is to ignite and stimulate ideas and discussions on a very important topic. Delegates, we believe you are the practitioners of municipalities and you are best placed to share best practice at the summit. And we are very hopeful that once we leave the summit, we are enriched and motivated to improve revenue collection for sustainable growth. I want to thank my colleague, Mr. Pillay, for sharing this with me, but we've seen this in previous years, right? So this is a Black Friday special being run by City of Tshwane. Okay? So they're saying to you, and I've circled it there, they're saying, thinking of Black Friday shopping, you better pay your municipal accounts, otherwise next Friday will be a black one too. So this is the brilliance and innovation that Fortune spoke about yesterday. They're thinking outside the box. And for me, what is important is that, this is my takeaway from this thing. They've put up their hand to the consumers and said, we want to compete for the disposable income you are paying on the Takealot, the Shanes and the Temus and the like. So they put up their hand and say, we want our money too. I want to stop there, colleagues. I've spoken too much, and I did say to my colleague to stop me from talking. And I think I'll ask Mrs. Ntanzi to comment on the government debt issues. If you will, please, ma'am. Thank you.